We're in Maimer Zayin of Kedusha Shabbos, and we're learning about the transitional period of Esther. There's a tkufa of transition. In other words, I'll just talk out loud for a second. There's a few things that happened in the time of Esther. There's a few major shifts that took place during the time of Esther. Number one is we went from Eretz Yisrael into Persia. So there was a movement into Gullus. Number two, it was the Sof Zman of Tanakh. It was the end of Tanakh. The Chasimas HaTanakh was the time of Esther. Esther Sof Kol Hanisim Shenitan Lichtay. It's Tkufa of Esther. Tkufa of Esther includes in the Tanakh the Ezra, Nehemiah, Malachi Zu Ezra, the Gemara says. So it was the Sof Zman of biblical days, if you will. It was the Sof Zman, so therefore it was the Sof Zman of Torah Shebiksav. And there was a very, very unbelievable transition, if you think about it, between Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh. This all took place in the neighborhood, in the chronological neighborhood of Esther. Going with that was the haskalah of the Torah Shebal Peh. So Torah Shebal Peh as we know it, the koach of Torah Shebal Peh as we know it, started at the time of Esther. And of course, the transition from Bayis Rishon to Bayis Sheni was taking place in the time of Esther. So a lot of things coming together at the time of Esther, and they're all related. So Nachmal, the Sof of the time of nevuah was Esther. The Sof of the time of Torah Shebiksav was Esther. The Sof of the time of Eretz Yisrael and the Shechina and the Nisim of the Bayis Rishon was the time of Esther. The Haskalah of Torah Shebal Peh was the time of Esther. The beginning of the Anshe Knesset Hagdola was the time of Esther. The beginning of Bayis Sheni, the roots of Bayis Sheni were taking place in time of Esther. So she was the crossroads in history, Tzomet in history of going from one time, one tkufa to another tkufa, and a huge change in tkufas. So what we learned on Monday was that when Esther wrote to the Anshe Knesset Hagdola, sent a message to the Anshe Knesset Hagdola, this story that just took place in Shushan, she wants to be kasvuni l'doros. It should be written l'doros. What she meant, what she was asking for, is that this too should be part of Tanakh. So she just got in under the wire to become part of the Tanakh. They weren't so open to it. Esther, very good, but it should be like you have Megillas Tainus. There should be Megillas Esther. It should be a Torah. It should be a Torah Shebal Peh, coming from a different tkufa. So she argued, no. What do you mean? I have nevuah. I had nevuah, right? So we part of them. This was a nes. It wasn't as nigla as Kriyas Yamsuf, but there was. Everybody realized that there was usually like Yehudim Ha'Sa'ira, V'Simcha V'Sasin. It wasn't just like small nests like breathing or seeing or something like that. It was like a serious nest. It should be. It was a miracle. She argued of biblical proportion, right? And she won the argument, and it became part of Torah Shebiksav. One of the things that I just hope that we'll have the ha'ara to understand is like I mentioned it last week, that b'chol divrei Mordechai, Esther, b'chol B'Isaiah, Suvan al Sefer divrei Hayamim l'Malchei, Paras u'Modai, and the whole thing is also written in history. It's just such a strange pasuk to me. Like, what does that mean? That we need it to be justified by the fact that it was brought down in history? Doesn't mean it's like, if you want to know the whole story, Ain-Sof, go to the library and Google it.
It's Mamash
Ma'akev. It's part of the Megillah.
Yeah.
Whole divrei Mordechai Esther. It sounds like maybe it should be a medrash someplace, like the whole divrei Mordechai Esther footnote.
Is it today?
Ain-Sof. We have no such thing. We have no such...
right?
No, the historian said the story never took place. They can't find the story.
Well, Rabbi Landy says when Alexander's troops conquered Persepolis, which was the twin capital with Shushan, the Persians had two capitals. They destroyed the library there. The Persians had these clay tablets, but they also had manuscripts, and very, very few of the manuscripts have survived. Most of them were destroyed when the Macedonians became Persians.
But here's the kasha. Here's the kasha that if it's in the what is it? What did she mean when she said kisvuni l'dairos? To let it be lanetzach. Nevuah shehutzricha l'dairos nichtava. Even in the time, even in biblical time, it had to be hutzricha l'dairos. Why? Because Torah has to be netzach. Torah has to be forever. So Erechanami, the Megillas Esther is l'netzach, and the Sifrei Paras Amadai are not l'netzach. So this lasted and this didn't last. But you would think that if it already says in Tanakh that kol zeh nichtava, you would think that would be also l'netzach. So it's mashma the Bar Bakav is l'netzach. The Ain-Sof is l'netzach, but the Sham is not l'netzach. That's what we have to say. But okay, so here we have what's so important here is the tkufah of Esther. As I pointed out, Esther was the Bayis Sheni. Esther was the beginning of the Bayis Sheni. Esther married Achashverosh, had a son Dariyavesh, Koresh. This was all Mishpachas Esther. Mishpachas Esther that without Esther having the door is locked. Without Esther being the queen of Iran, the queen of Persia, so there would be no Bayis Sheni al pi teva. So she opened up a whole new tkufah. Okay, we learned about Olam Shana Nefesh, another yisoid that we learned. Olam Shana Nefesh is the important language for the three dimensions of gashmius, which are attached to ruchnius. Means that, I was actually misponing on this a little bit this morning. It means that we're very finite. We're finite. I mean, you could everything that we have can be seen on an X-ray machine and can be broken down into cells. We're very finite, but there's an infinite aspect to us. We could sometimes be masik things that are like nevuah, let's say. You could be masik things that are outside of the microscopic or what you could see under a microscope. The neshama can't be seen under a microscope. Nobody can identify the neshama. It'll never happen. Why? Because this is the only thing that can be identified and observed is things which are self. Olam Shana Nefesh, you can identify the self, but it's attached to the Ain-Sof. So attached to the Ain-Sof means that there is an infinite aspect to everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we learn. I think by his point, this tells me that when we're davening, there could be a moment of, when you're davening, there could be a moment of infinity. It could be a moment of connection to Ain-Sof. It's something which doesn't work scientifically, but it works somehow in my mind. That there could be a moment of Ain-Sof which is lamala from hasaga. It's not something that we necessarily understand or even feel. It's just some kind of a moment of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's that connection which we're discussing here is Torah Shabbat connection, Torah Shabbat Peh connection. What's the connection? So that's the Olam Shana Nefesh. It's finding the ruchnius connection. In other words, it's like a handle. You can look at this as a phone. It's a nice machir. It's nice. It's designed well. It even does some stuff. But it's like it's really a machine which only has its value if it's connected to something at a higher level. It's connected to some type of a reshet, an even invisible reshet. The new Chrome laptops have nothing b'fnim. It's just strictly connecting to the internet. Like, what do you need anything? You don't need any disk. You don't need anything in your computer. It's just strictly connecting. So the neshama, okay, so the guf, the ruach, the nefesh, it can do some stuff. Clearly, it can do some stuff. You can build buildings, but you can also, by connecting to the neshama, you're connecting to the reshet of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Shechina. So there's a connection here between the finite and the infinite. That's what's going on. That's what our avodah is, to connect to that infinite. So it's just I don't know how your paragraphs work, but in my paragraphs. Shezehu Saif Madregas Hanisim, for a period. Esther was the end of the Madrega of Nisim Shloihaya Nes B'Shidud Hateva Kinisei Yitzias Mitzrayim. This is what the end, like the bottom of the barrel of the Nisim Gluyim of Tanakh, of biblical proportion miracles. That it wasn't going against Teva. You have the place Kinisei Yitzias Mitzrayim, like the Nes of Yitzias Mitzrayim. To Moshe Rabbeinu all of a sudden. Esther was not able to do what Moshe Rabbeinu could do in terms of changing Teva. Yeshua, Ve'Elio, Va'Elisha, Kedoima. What did she do? Bazeshi, Biksha, Me'amelech, V'Asa Ritzayna. She asked the king for something, and he said, okay. That was the ganze Nes over here. That was the moment of Menahafach. I don't know if I can do it, I don't know. It wasn't like okay, she asked the Melech for something, the Melech said yes. It's not really a Kriyas Yamsuf. But everybody, this is the Nes. The Nes was that everybody recognized that it was a Nes. It's a Nes, no? It's really a Nes. I mean, first of all, they were assimilated. Second of all, in general, Eid Bal Hanes Makir Benisa. But everybody said, this is not going to happen. There's no way. Sometimes in your life, there's some things that are such givens and so clear that there's just no way to change it. Haman was a Metzias. Achashverosh was a Metzias. There's no such thing as Haman as a king in those days taking back a decree. There was no way to take back a decree. Physically, once it's out there, it's out there. Who said that they're going to hear in the outposts in Persia that the king took back the decree, could get another decree. Plus, it wasn't our courage to do that. A king says something, you don't change your mind. So the whole thing was just a metzias. The annihilation of the Jewish people was a metzias. So everybody was makir. Whoa, she changed the metzias. Something that we never thought would happen, happened. So everybody was makir that it was Yeshua Hashem, but it was a different kind of a nes. This is the kind of a nes you get at the end of all nisim, the end of the biblical period. And so Melech hafachvach kazeh, and look what we're talking about. We're talking about a kind of a king. It's a good word, a hafachvach, unstable. Shekvar harag ishtoi mipnei oyavoi, that he killed his own wife. Mipnei Ovo, which I presume means Haman. He liked Haman. He liked Haman so much that Haman says, kill your wife, so he killed his wife. Right? Okay, I'll kill my wife. Not a problem. So he wasn't like, who's he listening to? His wife or the women around him? Or was he listening to Haman? He was listening to Haman. Comes Esther and she says, kill Haman, and he kills Haman. But even that wasn't b'shidud teva, wasn't keneged teva. V'hu sof nisim hamagulim. This is the end of all revealed miracles. V'haschalos nisim hanistarim sh'Hashem yisbarach oisa b'chol yom imanu gamata. It was the beginning. So it was a fascinating time in the sense that not only was it a miracle, which was the end of the biblical miracles, hence was a different kind of miracle, but it was also had within it a component which was the beginning of the new kind of miracles, the new age. So it had a part of it which was nigla lakol, and had a part of it which was nes nister. You with me on this? There was two components to the miracle. It was the only time in history. Either it's this way or it's that way. This had both. It had the past and it had the future. And that's the way Nisim now go because of Esther. Hascholos Nisim and Storm Hashem Yisbarach Oisa B'choyim Imanu Gam Ata until today. Like Paskumi Olam, this will never end. Vizel Misitra de Nukva, and that's what the Sitra de Nukva is all about. She'enu Yeshua Shlema. It's never a complete Yeshua, the Sitra de Nukva. V'akate Avde Achashverosh Hanan. I'm going to explain. So we didn't have a full Yeshua. In other words, like if there were 10 Malchus in Mitzrayim, it wasn't a full Yeshua because the Mitzrayim were still running after us. It was only the Kriyas Yam-Suf wasn't a full Yeshua, a great miracle, but it wasn't a full Yeshua because the Mitzrayim were still running after us. It was only when the Yam closed, Shvi Shal Pesach. It's only when the Yam closed on the Mitzrayim, Vayaminu Vashamu Moshe Abda. Okay, that's a Yeshua. The Roitfim are gone. It was the first deep breath that the Jewish people took in 210 years. They're gone. The oppressor is dead. The witch is dead. It's gone. Over here, we didn't have that. Golus was far from over. There was a Bayesheni, there was a Hanukkah story, there was Yavanim, there was Romans, there was Chorban Bayesheni, there was Holocaust. It was far from over. But what you did have was a Yeshua b'bchinas nukva. So let's understand for a second b'chinas nukva lashon nekeva. So there's nisim. You see, everything we're saying. This is really the main point I want to say. Everything that happens in this world is either mibchinas duchra or it's mibchinas nukva. Either it's coming from top to bottom as a hashpah to us, like Brias Olam, duchra, like just as in the biological model, zachar is the noising, and then there's b'chinas nukva. There's the b'china of nukva is the b'china of makabel, to put it simply. But it's more important than just being makabel. It's not. We're not talking about a kos and mayim. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a nukva like the earth is nukva to a seed. That yesh lachkor, what grew the tree? Was it the seed or was it the earth? It's not so pashut. Like it's not so pashut. And a chanam, you can't do it without a seed. We can't do it without me either, says the earth. So. Isha Adama Nukva. So Nukva is taking an energy milamala and fertilizing that energy in the entire Bria. And by fertilizing it, the fertilization of that, on the one hand, can be considered the ikr, like in the Puravu model. The man's job is, a minute. The woman's job is months and months, not to mention years. The b'chinas nukva, mothering a child, is a much bigger job, if you will, than fathering a child. Agreed? Clear. It's a much bigger job. But it's not a yeshua shlema, meaning it's limited in what it can do. It's limited. What the nukva can do in any place in the Bria is limited to the duchra that it's working with. Easy enough to understand, right? He can't do better. Let's say a zachar ki'ilu can do good, can do bad, but it's unlimited. It's almost unlimited to what you can create. This nukva, that nukva, this nukva. I was speaking last night for a group of rabbis in training, talking about levayas and halachas of levayas, and I just remembered all the different inyanim of that were makpid on, that the pallbearers should be shomer Shabbos, and I explained all these inyanim al pi halacha, al pi minhag, but I was just remembering last night. I was talking to them. Time that there was a man who was an old man. I didn't really know him too well, but he was a member of the shul that I was the rabbi of. So you remember, he did the funeral. So apparently he was a Jewish man from a family that I knew, and had an antique store someplace downtown. Not a person I really knew. I think he came called Nidre or something. Apparently he was married to a black woman, non-Jewish black woman. So okay, that was a small component of the Levi. I mean, she didn't die; he died. But so we were standing at the funeral home, and that there was a couple hundred people in the funeral home sitting there. So I announced, as was my minhag, that the first of kin, the children of the deceased, please stand up and come forward as pallbearers. So all of a sudden, like 9 big, gigantic black guys stood up. Looked like the NFL. It was the Buffalo Bills. They were here they'll stand up like it was just such a scene to see. Like whoa! I promised my mind didn't go so far as to think, well, if he was married to a black woman, maybe his kids. I mean, you're talking black guys, And then the minhag is that the funeral directors give the pallbearers white gloves to put on.
לא סתם.
Shom Shabbos, they're going.
If they're not Shom Shabbos, it's סתם because of...
No, it's classier. Yeah, that's what it's classier. So,
Waiters.
so you have to. No, but you have to. I was just trying to portray the scene of here's this coffin of this little Yiddish named Benny, and he's being carried by 9 big black guys with white gloves. And I'm walking by in the coffin saying, "Oh, that beginner's nukva is pretty strong, no? That's the beginner's nukva. It changed the whole Metzias there. It was like a wow. So Mamela, since the nukva has an inherent limitation, it can only fertilize what it's given. So since it has that inherent limitation, so ein ha yeshua shleima. Akati avde achashver Shana. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do something b'shleimus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do whatever he wants to do. But the bechinas nukva can't do whatever they want to do. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our zachar is also limited, less limited than the nekeva. But even I mean, we could start understanding infinity when you start thinking about things like even grass. Like or seeds that could actually spread and keep on going and keep on growing. And you get a Johnny Appleseed type of a situation where you could have thousands. One fruit creates another fruit, creates another fruit tree. This falls here, and the wind blows it there. A couple thousand years, you got a forest. So you can understand like the bechinas nukva can spread, but it's still limited to that. Etzem zach, whereas the bechinas duchra has no limitations. So there's a limit to the amount of not just a simcha or accomplishment. There's a limit to the amount of nevuah, and there's a limit to the amount of yeshua nukvah that there could be. So it says Rabbi Tzadok, Esther minat Torah minayin. We all know that the Torah wanted to find the Gemara wants to find Esther in the Torah. So the pasuk that they came up with, "Vanoichi haster aster panai bayom hahu." Vanoichi haster aster panai bayom hahu shemisham hayasherish nafsha. Like, let's say it this way: the tkufa of nevuah began with Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. The tkufa of nevuah ended with Anoichi Aster Aster Panai Bayemahu. So the 2 Anoichis. The first Anoichi was with Koilos, and with Brokim, and with, most important, Matan Torah. Matan Torah was a gift from Shemayim that came to Aretz. It's like, what do you think about it? It's not a smaller nest than the Brias Olam Gufa. Might be bigger. That some kind of a Chachma, Ilah, should come to Tata was the ultimate duchra reaching nukva, and that's the first Anoichi. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha asher yitzisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim nisim gluyim. The last Anoichi. And this is why the Torah identifies this pasuk. Not just it's a pun on the word Esther, which was a Persian name anyway. Her name was Hadassah. It's a concept. Anoichi Aster Aster Panai Bayom Hahu Haster Astir Panai Bayom Hahu is a different type of Anoichi. It's a Anoichi of Hester Panim, but it's still an Anoichi. It's still a Bechinas nukva, but a duchra rather, but the Bechinas. So it was the Soif called Hanisim Sheninasim, and that's where. And here's a huge chiddush. Shemisham haya shirish nafsha. The shirish nefesh of Esther came from this pasuk. Do you understand? Let's understand the math before we could even possibly understand what this means. I'm not sure I understand what it means. But this is how it works. Our own neshamas are, like, we all know this. We all know that yesh shishim ribuy oisius l'Torah. Pachot yoter. There's 600,000 oisius in the Torah, an ois for every Jew that stood at Har Sinai. Very nice. Like, you buy an ois in the Sefer Torah, does it cost $5, $100, you want a kosher ois, you want to have the last ois, what I want to have an oichi. So everybody's got an ois. 600,000 of the Roshei neshamas of Klal Yisrael, Shishim Ribui, each one has an ois. There's more than 600,000 oisius. Not every ois is. There's different oisius which are. There's less than different oisius because oisius are comprised of a few different oisius. So, for instance, an aleph has a two yuds and a vav. So 600,000 oisius that the Torah is talking about, you come up with much less than that. But the 600,000 oisius that is talking about altogether in the Omek Hadavar, you have 600,000 oisius. So the aleph is 3 oisius. The mashal. That's just 2 zayins. So how do you want to understand the juxtaposition between the oisius of the Torah and the neshamas of Klal Yisrael? What's this about? What's this connection about? You can say drushes. You could say Torah. You could say, look, every Jew is important, just like every ois is important. If an ois is missing, the Sefer Torah is puzzle. If a Jew is missing, Klal Yisrael is missing. If ois is broken, if there's one Jew broken, Mekan Zogan drushes, but it doesn't explain what does it mean that the neshamas are connected to the oisius. But the metziuses, like the facts are that every neshama has an ois. So try to figure out what your ois is. Esther's ois was Esther min ha-Torah minayin. That's what the Gemara is trying to learn. The essence of the oisius of Esther was v'anoichi astir panai v'yemahu. The deep question of Esther min ha-Torah minayin, or Haman min ha-Torah minayin, hamin ha'etz asher amarti l'cha lo l'echol. Again, you can learn Pashut Pshat in the Gemara because Hamin ha'etz, that Hey Mem Nun, was the shirish of the neshama of Haman. Aster is the shirish of the neshama of Esther, and Mar Drar is the shirish of the neshama of Mordechai. I still don't know what it means. I'm just explaining how it works. And every one of us, you don't have to be Esther, Mordechai, or Haman. Every one of us has a connection to an ois. Shekol anefashos hem oisius haTorah ki yadua. I'm having a problem with the ki yadua part. V'hiskalos da anoichi shebehastaris panim. Here you have an anoichi. It wasn't even the aster. It was the anoichi, the last anoichi of anoichi aster panim, which was the oisi, which was the shirish neshama. The oisius, again, so it's not good enough just to do a gematria or find out where your name appears in the Torah. It's some kind of a connection. So let's understand. I just want to understand this nukvah of oisius for a minute. I brought you Rav Kook explains in Eretz Yisrael Zion. Mleya hi neshama oisios, mleyos or chayim. The neshama is full of oisios. Or chayim. These oisios are the light of life. Das, v'rotzain, mleyas ruach, habata, u'metzias mleya. Mizayar ha'oisios ha'chayos halolu, from the light, the illumination, which the oisios of our neshama give out. There's Zoyar ha'oisios mismaloi ziv ha'chaim kol yeser hadargus asher levinin ha'chaim. It's from there that we can build our different levels of ruchnius. Asher l'chol shidras ha'rotzen ha'deya v'amifal, that they will go, this light will illuminate every different, the shidra is like the spinal cord, but there's a shidra for our back. There's a shidra for our rotzen. There's the nekuda nifla of what we want in life. What our das is. They all have their own shidra. L'ruach u'neshama b'chol archeim. Kishnigashim l'mitzvah, ha-mitzvah tamid malei ziv chaim shel kol elamim. The mitzvah is the end of all of the elamos. Malei he kol mitzvah oisiyos kedolos u'niflois. Mikol tarek mitzvahs atluis b'chol mitzvah. Mikol chaya elamim shebeside hamun. So what's he saying? He's saying that, again, let's get the math. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the neshama. It's malei oisiyos. He created the Torah, the mitzvahs, also malei oisiyos. And there's some times that the oisius of the neshama have to connect with the oisius of the mitzvah. That's the math. And that's what happens when you do a mitzvah. And that's what happens when you learn Torah. You're connecting your oisius to those oisius. It's a connection. Mazot omer. It means that an ois, if you think about it, ois. What does the word os actually mean? Sign, symbol. Yeah? It's not a. It's representing something. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates, things go from ayin to yesh. Right? So, from a place where we have no concept at all to taking form. Where it begins to be a place where we can touch and feel is called oisios. The oisios of the aleph phase, the chav phase oisios, the holiness of them, is that they are the soif of the bria and the bechina of zachar. Oisios is the final articulation of the duchra of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of the bria of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What do you do with oisios? Go write a poem. Go write a book. Go learn Torah. Connect. So the oisios represents the end of the bria, the raw material of the bria that Hashem created from yesh me'ayin. Right? That's what an os is. Here's the oisios. Do something with it. So the whole world that we see are really oisios. The oisios that we know about from the Zohar is that every word of the Torah is obviously oisios. That's the pshat and the oisios of the Torah. And that's why, as the Goin says famously, even if you scramble the letters, the oisios are still there. And there's still the energy of the Torah, and that's still emes pshat. Still emes pshat. And the neshama has oisios. So there's like two lines of bria here. Two lines of oisios. One line of oisios is the oisios of the neshama, which is the final articulation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's bria in a person, and that's your oisios. So my oisios represent my potential, and then there's the oisios of the Torah, which represent here's the chachma elyona that's coming into this world. So I have two sets of oisios in this world, two sets of bria. We being the ultimate creation on the sixth day of creation. So, Malei Oisios. So the neshama is Malei Oisios, and the Torah is obviously Malei Oisios. The bigger chiddush here is that the neshama is Malei Oisios. So that's the way the bria works. Now the question is, there has to be a connection between the Oisios of my neshama and the Oisios of the Torah. Why does there have to be? Kacha. Because it's all one bria. Makes perfect sense. It's all one bria, Seif will say. So it's not just like, here you are, here's the rules. Play. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that I'm connecting to the higher worlds of Olam, Shana, Nefesh through these oisius. I'm working my way up to the point where there are no oisius to infinity, and the Torah can do the same thing. So you have the Anoichi Hashem Elokecha of Matan Torah, which was the oisius of Hashem. Very clear. Everything is clear, everything is galui. This is the bria that I've created. And then you have the Anoichi of Haster Aster Panai B'Yomahu. That's the oisius of the Neshama. And that was the beginning, Soif. So she was there. She had two components. It was the end of the Torah Shibiksav, the end of the Anoichi Hashem Elokecha, and the beginning of Anoichi Aster Aster Panai, which was still there at the end, but it was something new. Torah Shabbat Peh. Nisim Nistar. Stuff that we need to be Megala. It's not as clear as Nisya Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's his point. That's Rabbi Tzadok's point. That's Rabbi Kook's point. It's a new period where we need to be Megala these Nisim and these Nistar, because it's a new Anoichi that we're in. It's a new set of oisius, if you will. Kishenigashim lamitzvah, as Rav Kook, when I take the oisius of my neshama and I approach a mitzvah, ha-mitzvah hitamid mleya ziv chaim shel kol elamim. I'm touching an eternal part of Chachma. Mleya hi kol mitzvah oisius gedolos v'niflois. The mitzvah has tons of oisius gedolos niflois. Mikol tariach mitzvah satlois b'chol mitzvah. Mikol chayo elamim shebesayim eternity. Infinity. Ziv or elikim chaim, the oisius of the Torah, start their shirish is in or elikim chaim, or chayo elamim, chay b'chol noyam, b'hoid kol mitzvah. Takef, and here's what happens here. Takef b'gishtenu l'mitzvah la'asoisa, as soon as we approach a mitzvah, meaning our oisius, approach a mitzvah, Miskad lois kol ha'oisius ha'chayis shebim Huseinu. We've illuminated the oisius that are within us. This was represented on the choshen of the Kohen Gadol. The oisius of our neshama get completely nourished, completely illuminated by doing the mitzvah, because we're connecting those, we're plugging them in to the oisius which also touch infinity. I think that it's kedai to understand that Torah has an infinite level all onto itself, even if there would be no people. L'chayr. The neshama has an infinite part to it, even if there would be no Torah. But they're not when they're not connected. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're still. What happens when the oisius of the mitzvah, says Rav Kook, touch the oisius of the neshama? Anu misgadlim, umiskabrim, misatzmim, ba'ar chayim, v'havai elyon. We become chachmas Hashem, Torah panav. Or zaru al tzaddik. The lights go on. Mufu'ara v'ashira oisher kodesh elamim. His words are so beautiful. Uba'ar Torah v'ziv chachma. We change. We change. You see that when Hashem gave the Torah on Har Sinai, so the people changed. By Yanu, we were in a whole different matzav. The people changed. It's not just the world changed. The people changed. Noros Aleinu flows onto us. Osan Osios Shel Makoros HaTorah. The osios that come from the Torah flow into us. Ulumasa misnasos oisius hachayim amleya ziva or pnimi shivumosenu. So it means to say the only way to ignite or illuminate the oisius, which is the soif kol abriya, the ultimate articulation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's bria within us, is to plug it in to the Or HaTorah. So the connection is not more than an instruction manual. Utisisa haras olam mishave. What wonderful words, huh? Lumasa misnasois oisius achayim hamleos ziv or pnimi shibimosenu. The light within us, the oisius within us, begin to illuminate. Just think about it. Imagine it. Utisisa, and then there becomes a bubbling. Toses. Utisisa haras olamim mishave. The Shana begins to bubble within us. So that's what Limud Torah and Asiyas Mitzvahs Lishma does. If it's not Lishma, by the way, it doesn't have any of this effect. It's almost worthless.
How do we find the Osius?
It's almost worthless, one second, because the Gemara says it's worthless. But, it's Kedai, says the Gemara, to do Oisik B'Torah, to do mitzvahs Shalai Lishma, for one reason only, Shalai Lishma Bo Lishma. The mashmos of the Gemara is that Shalai Lishma doesn't have any of this effect. But a mitzvah Lishma, where I am finding what my oisius are, that's also esoteric, but I think that, it's a beginning of understanding something, that finding the oisius of my neshama and connecting them to the oisius of the Torah tells us everything that there is to know about us, including, like in terms of Esther, the tkufa that she lived in. You're anoichi bi, anoichi aster panai, anoichi beis. You're living mitaycha Esther. What's our oisius? I don't know. I have to work on that. I have to learn more. Az chedvas noyam gvuras kodesh v'sasen adonim. I just want to read you this poetry. Mishave berucheno pnima. Chedvas noam. We get a certain ne'imois biyamincha netzach. There's a certain pleasantness. Gvura, kodesh. It's a certain gvura that we get. Sasain, a certain simcha that we get. Mishave berucheno pnima. It all comes into our inner strength. Ubechol hayakum mischadesh or hachayim. And the entire Bria would be doing this, then it would be a whole different type of a world. Ha'olam muchra al yadenu liskais. The world is there and decided by what we do with it. Al kol panim mitaisef or v'yosher. How much light, that was by connecting, how much light are we putting into the world? Ritzayin b'seva type nimi. And then he says, famous theme, Rav Kook, Eretz Yisrael is also part of this equation. Eretz Yisrael, misgad loisa oisius shel nishmasenu. How do you like that? How do you find your oisius? First thing you do, move to Israel. Eretz Yisrael, is there anything that challenges our essence more than moving to Israel? I thought I was a big lawyer. All of a sudden, I'm making 7,000 shekel a month. Like, what's going on here? I thought I was a whole personality. All of a sudden, like everybody, there was, some clerk is yelling at me. Like what's? There's a certain
ego.
Right. So, in other words, a deflation. Pruning. Very good. A deflation of the chitzonius so that the pneumius can grow. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here.
That's what it was.
That's what it was. Chaval, you didn't have kavanah. And it doesn't, it's a logo mer.
All the bureaucracy in the shmur, really.
Shluchei Hashem. It's so, it's so. Somebody was telling me yesterday. I don't want to go to the army. It's a free country. So, somebody told him. He's telling me the story. So somebody told him, what's the matter? Like, in other words, a certain like it, don't like it. I'm not saying politics here. There's a certain subjugation of the neshama that takes place. But it's a tough place. Eretz Yisrael niknas v'yisurim. It's a tough place, but it's a place where the oisios, says Rav Kook, Eretz Yisrael misgad loisa oisios shel nishmasenu. You're not going to be Miskadol the Guf here. That's not where it's going to happen. It's Miskadlos ha'oisiyah shal nishmasenu sham machshifais hein nahara. It's where the stream of light is coming in. Yonkos chayim atzmi miziva chayim shel knesses Yisrael. It's only in Eretz Yisrael. I'll tell you why. Because in Eretz Yisrael, I mean, I'm telling you what he says later. It's later. In Eretz Yisrael, there's the culmination of a whole history of oisiyos that start with Lech Lecha, with Avram Avinu, maybe even earlier. That it's all ingrained in the so when you're illuminating an ois in Eretz Yisrael, or when your neshama is connecting to a mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael, Ein Torah Eretz Yisrael, it's a whole different story. Probably why Rabbi Yochanan told the Chachmei Bavel when they came to Eretz Yisrael after the Churban Bayis Sheni, they came back to Eretz Yisrael because Rabbi Yochanan was such a big Rosh Yeshiva, and they wanted to learn from him. So Rabbi Yochanan told them, like, the way you get into this yeshiva here is to forget Kol Torah's Bavel. You got to forget everything you learned. He gave him a bracha. I give you a bracha. Torah's Bavel and Talmud Bavli. Who would want to forget Torah's Bavel? It's a different energy here. Here you're tapping into an energy of. It doesn't mean the Talmud Yerushalmi. You're tapping into a different energy of the oisius that are in Eretz Yisrael. So you really have a three. We have to continue on this thing because it's so important. But there's actually a three-pronged set of oisius. And when you think of it again, let's just do this one sikum. Oisios mean something very simple. Oisios is the raw material of the Bria. The final articulation of whatever Hashem created comes out in an ois. Now, go just like an ois. It's a great muscle. Just like an ois, you can write words. You can hurt people. You can help people. You can write poetry. You can write divrei Torah. You can do whatever you want with those oisius. Here they are. Here's an aleph base for you. Here's an alphabet. You have tremendous potential. Same thing is the neshama is mlei oisius, and the same thing is Eretz Yisrael is mlei oisius. So these are all the oisius, and when they come together, what are you putting together here? It's not like a crossword puzzle. What are you putting together over here? You're putting together all the raw material that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us in this world, put it together in the right recipe, and bing, the lights go on, and the world is changed. And that's the goal of mitzvahs, neshama, Eretz Yisrael. That's how that trifecta works. Klal Yisrael, Torah Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael. This is Rav Kook's theme. The three things together. It's not I wasn't making a political point. It was a mitzias. There's a mitzias here that we see through history of Am Yisrael, one set of oisias, Torah Yisrael, a clear set of oisias, and Eretz Yisrael, a third set of oisias. If you can put those three together, you get the Geula. The world is so changed. You're using all the potential for everything that it was meant to, that it was created for.
Right.